He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you agree with that?
He's a war hero because he was captured, okay?
What Trump said about my father is irreprehensible. I mean, it's, I've never forgotten it. And, you know, to remind everyone, you know, John McCain was my father as well. And, you know, he was the guy I went to when I skinned my knee, you know. So to hear those things said about him, I could never forgive. You know, the one thing about John McCain is that he cared about his country and he lived his life that way. So as we moved on, and I was gone for a year, so I didn't have a chance to change. But as soon as I was back, I see, you know, I care about my family. I care about equal rights of everyone in this country. I care about all this. And, you know, as much as I stayed as an independent, I decided that, you know, it was time to move on and do what I believe in. You know, the fact of the matter that he said it constantly is country first. You have to think about your country first. However that is, care about your country, care about how making it better. Not being divided, but being together as one to continue to be the greatest country in the world.
You know, he sounds like John McCain.
Yeah.
Country first.
Jimmy McCain, the late Senator John McCain's youngest son, responding to Donald Trump's past comments about his father and explaining why he's now registering as a Democrat to support Vice President Kamala Harris this November. Welcome back to Morning Joe. It is Wednesday, September 4th. Jonathan Lemire is still with us and joined the conversation we have. Msnbc contributor Mike Barnicle and host of the podcast On Brand with Donnie Deutsch. Donnie Deutsch is with us this hour. Good to have you all on board.
You know, Willie, I was in conversation a couple weeks ago when Mika and I were away. And around the table, just randomly, were 5 different people. And sitting there, 4 of them, former Republicans. We just happened to come together. There was no, like, sort of planning. I didn't tell Mika, hey, let's call our former Republican friends. These were just friends, people from different walks of life. And all people that left the Republican Party, all people who had voted for Republicans in every election for president their entire life until 2016. Some of them voted for Donald Trump in 2016, but didn't in 2020. One of them said after January 6th that was enough. We have Jimmy McCain here. Again, we had David French on the show. You look at Elise Jordan, who sort of a more libertarian, but always voted Republican. It's really shocking that Republican leaders in the House and the Senate on the state level aren't more concerned with all the Republicans they have lost. And I will say again, without going over it, but all the elections they have lost in consecutive years since 2017. And it does beg the question, if they lose again, will they then see that they have to turn away from Donald Trump? I'm not saying they go back to Ronald Reagan, but they certainly can adopt some of the positive elements of Reaganism, and then, move forward with other conservative viewpoints that Donald Trump has just completely abandoned.
Yeah, where do the Nikki Haley Republicans end up? People who are still Republicans. It was interesting after Jimmy McCain, Senator McCain's son, came out yesterday, who, by the way, Jimmy McCain served in the United States Army, just got back from a deployment in the Middle East. What's that?
Marine Corps.
In the Marine Corps, excuse me, and just got back from a deployment. His sister, Meghan McCain, very well known, said, I'm not voting for Donald Trump, but I'm going to remain a Republican and hope for better days. I don't think she's going to vote for Kamala Harris either. But there is what you're talking about, either former Republicans or people hanging on to the idea of what we were just talking about in our last segment, Joe, with Max Boot and David French, that there may be life for Republicans on the other side of Donald Trump. And as you say, it's not just him. It's the candidates he has pushed on the party who have lost winnable races in the House and governor's mansions in the Senate that have cost them seats of power that could help them push forward their policies. For whatever reason, they continue to hitch their wagon to Donald Trump, despite all the results we've seen.
If you talk to Republicans, Republican leaders, Republicans in the Senate, off the record, Mike Barnicle, they will tell you that Donald Trump has cost them the Senate, control of the Senate, over the past 4 years, specifically by the chaos he has unleashed within the Republican Party in the state of Georgia. And he's at it again. And you do wonder, Mike, at what point do Republicans step forward and actually do what my class did and fight for things like a balanced budget, a strong military, reforms that make programs stronger. At what point? I mean, we balanced the budget 4 years in a row. It's the only time it's happened in 100 years. And that's something that, again, most Americans would say, okay, well, that makes sense, protecting taxpayer money. But even this Trump Republican Party, they exploded the national debt even before COVID, more than any party in history. And when I go around and talk to people, and it's not just former Republicans, they say we need a conservative party again, not a Trump conservative party, but a conservative party, a real conservative party. And it's just not there.
Joe, that clip that we showed coming into this segment was 10 years ago. Donald Trump saying that John McCain, was not a war hero, or he was a war hero, but he was captured. He liked people who weren't captured. He has had a grip on the Republican Party ever since then. When that happened, I received a call early in the morning, on the night after he said that, from a fairly prominent Democratic United States senator who said, "Did you hear what Trump said last night about John McCain?" And we both agreed on the phone, and I think a lot of people probably shared the agreement, that his candidacy was done before it ever took off. But it wasn't done. He became president of the United States. So that's what the Republican Party is living with every day since then. And today, we have a damaged, delusional old man who, again, might get reelected to the presidency of the United States. He is that close to it again. How did this happen? How does it happen that a man who speaks the way he speaks, deranged sometimes, delusional sometimes, some of the things he posts on Truth Social, his website, you cannot repeat on American television. You wouldn't repeat the words in front of your children. That's who he is. How did we get here? How did the Republican Party get here? And I have to tell you, and I hesitate to say this, and I don't know whether Jonathan or Willie or Donnie would agree with me, but there's a false equivalency going on in the coverage of this race, in that Donald Trump can say whatever crazy things he wants to say about submarines and sharks and electric batteries, whatever he wants to say. And it's not really covered in the sense that it's covered describing who said it, why he said it, and who the man is, Trump, out of his mind. And always in that story, in the equivalency, the false equivalency by too many reporters and too many American newspapers, there's also, by the way, Kamala Harris changed her mind on fracking. They always throw in something like that in coverage of the story. It's ridiculous. We don't cover the man for how dangerous he is.
Yeah, Jonathan Lemire, I mean, the shocking statements come every day, and not surprising, but still shocking, what he says. And, even Arlington, you've seen major newspaper outlets talk about, well, how will this impact Kamala Harris and the issue of Afghanistan after he goes? And he
does a thumbs up and pictures.
Well, and just acts like a brute and desecrates Arlington. That's not a time to say, well, how does it, it's, but again, we see it time and time again. For some reason, the mainstream media, what are we, 9 years in to Donald Trump's era in American politics, still doesn't know how to cover Donald Trump. they still are engaging, even at this late hour, in moral relativism and saying, yeah, but. And again, it's they just don't know how to put it in proper perspective because, as I said yesterday, they are so concerned about being objective that they're treating this race like it was 1996, Clinton versus Dole, or 2004, Bush versus Kerry. And their objective, and I put that word in quotes, their objectivity actually is not objective at all. It ends up playing to Donald Trump's advantage every day because they are so numbed by the hate speech that is spewed out of his mouth for the past 9 years.
Yeah, I think it's a fair analysis. A lot of media professors would agree with you that the mainstream media, as it were, is still struggling, still adapting to how to cover Donald Trump because he's someone that we've never seen before. And yes, it's almost a decade since, and certainly much has been written fairly about the mistakes that were made in 2015, 2016. I would argue the media has come certainly improved. We were better at covering 2020 than we were in 2016. I think in many ways we've been good about covering Trump's post-presidency. But you're right, in an effort to appear balanced, to appear objective, mistakes are absolutely being made and standards are being applied to both candidates here when Donald Trump is a different animal. He is an insurrectionist candidate. We should never lose sight of that. He lies more than any other major political figure we've ever had. Not even close. He is someone who flouts every rule and norm. He is someone who has been convicted of a crime. And all of that needs to be said and said. And I think the other focus here needs to be, as the media, on the stakes of this election, what it means, not just the day-to-day developments. Yes, we have to cover that too. That does matter, but it's about the stakes and it's about what it means for our nation's democracy and future.
There's also one more caveat that we should add here, and Mika just alluded to it. What kind of a person, what kind of a human being stands on the grounds of Section 60 at Arlington National Cemetery, filled with history's heroes, frozen forever in death, people's sons, brothers, husbands, wives, buried for the Republic? What kind of person stands there, looks into a camera, smiles with the thumbs up like this, with the headstones behind him? Ask yourself that question. What kind of a person does that?
Right, and one family, two families, they don't own Arlington. Arlington, of course, is for those who, as Jimmy McCain said yesterday, can't speak for themselves. So to be used as political props is so disturbing. You know, yesterday, to follow up on what Jonathan said yesterday, a former Republican senator, a former conservative Republican senator, said on the air that he could not vote for Donald Trump because he's an insurrectionist. And the person interviewing him said, but you should be worried about other things, like tax policy and regulations. I mean, how do you put an insurrection against the United States government up against changes in the tax code?
Short-sightedness.
No,
you have to have a country in order to have tax policy. I mean, remember we were talking on the street with the Republican couple, and the conversation was so difficult because one of them was definitely going to vote for Kamala Harris, knowing that ultimately that person wants to see a strong Republican Party return. And the only way that happens is getting rid of Trump and MAGA. And I'm sorry, that's the only way it happens. He can't be on the stage. He can't be controlling and pushing the buttons of the Republican Party for the party to be conservative and true to its core values. And the others thinking about the money and thinking about, well, you know, truth is fungible or whatever. It's crazy, the conversations out there.